He thanked everybody and already mentioned that you are the queen of swing. And I feel very, very honored to be here next to you today. And incredibly not have to read books or so, but talk to the one person that can answer all our questions concerning the dance and the music and the time at the Savoy and the big days in Harlem. And somebody who knew everybody, all the geniuses, and who was a big, and it still is a big genius of herself. And I think we are all so happy that we can barely speak. So I'm sorry when I'm... And for the ones of you who are maybe new to the scene or who are not so much into movie history and who haven't seen so many films, I think we will start with a film. It was a Soundy, played in jukeboxes. Aus einer Musikbox, einem Kurzfilm, die ersten Musikclips from 1941. Duke Ellington and Norma Miller and her friends in this film called Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, but we come to that later. It's a stupid name anyway, but the great dances from the Savoy in the film Hot Chocolate or Cottontail, and it's the middle film, and we can get an impression, and we will see that Norma hasn't changed much over the few years.
We had just finished making the movie, and this was shot the next day. So as to get it in before, we had to immediately leave for Rio de Janeiro. And this was a very difficult time because war was pending, all of that was happening. And we had to get out This was 1941. 1941, because Pearl Harbor happened on the 7th, and we had just gotten out of the country then.
Sie hat erzählt, dass dieser Clip kurz nach dem Film Helsa Poppin aufgenommen wurde und dass sie kurz danach nach Rio de Janeiro gegangen sind, wo sie dann ziemlich lange gestrandet sind, weil der Zweite Weltkrieg ausbrach währenddessen. Norma, I think it would be just lovely if we could start at the very, very beginning, like with your family. Maybe, if you like, with your mother coming from Barbados to New York City. I'd love to hear it.
Well, my mother came to America in 1950. She was 15 years old when she came to America. And in those days, today, the women who are brought in to do domestic work are called, in America, you call them now en père. En père, you know. Well, Mama was original en père. And I told my mother, I say, hey, you are en père.
Meaning not earning money, but the trip was paid for?
Well, in those days, one sister came, would work, save enough money, send for the next sister. And it was 3 sisters who came to this country. So my mother's first sister came, and she worked, saved the money, and sent for my mother, and the 2 of them worked, and sent for my aunt. So that was how the 3 sisters was in the country, and they couldn't get their mother in because the mother passed in the meantime. So now their life started, 3 sisters in America, and my mother came 1915, and I was born 1919.
Yeah.
Go figure. And when I came in December, my father died November. So
you never met your father?
Never, no. I bear his name and what he must have been like, but it was my mother and 2 children, 20 years old, widow at 20, and an immigrant. Now, you couldn't work, no jobs. And I used to say to my mother, how? I mean, what was it like? How difficult, you know? And she said, her famous words, when you don't have a horse, you ride a cow. And that was the philosophy that my mother handed down to me. And from then on, it was that trial by error. And I was a kid that could dance. You see, in those days, why I could dance, I don't know. But to raise money to pay the rent, they called them house rent parties. Mama used to get house rent parties to pay the rent. And I used to entertain. And
always a professional in show business.
So
no other way.
And the money from the parties would supplement my mother getting rent, and I would get a dish of ice cream every time I performed. And that was the beginning of my career. I'm still getting paid in ice cream. Was how, and then we lived, well, Harlem was a bed of entertainers. I mean, people, see, they used to come from the South and put shows together in New York because all the artists was in New York. I mean, if you needed a singer or drummer or whatever. So you can walk up and down any time up in Harlem and hear music. It was just a bed of music that I was raised around. I used to follow all the rehearsal halls and stand out and look and watch them. I don't know, that's all I ever did. And out of this whole bed of entertainment, I happened to be looking in on one of the great producers' shows, Leonard Reed. And I was standing there because I wanted to dance like these girls. These girls could dance. I could dance like that, but how do I get a job?
And you were very young too.
Yeah, well, I was 14. And I'm standing out there, and something must have happened in there, I don't know. So he came out storming and slammed.
Leonard Reed.
And he come out and he, can you dance? And, yeah. Do a time step. Get in there and learn that routine. I'm in show business. I was 14 years old.
And when you were 10 years, your mother moved right opposite 140th Street, opposite the Savoy, right?
In back of the Savoy. See, that was the new music coming in, because you can hear bands and whatnot. Now, in the Savoy, you didn't hear the Dixieland music. That was typically New Orleans style coming in. But now we're hearing this new music that's circulating. And you know, it's a funny thing, it's almost like a snowball. I mean, small bands is playing it, trios is playing it, and dancing follows music. The dancing now is smoothing out, and that's the dancing I saw. And it was easy to do.
Perfect timing.
Well, all of it was evolving one thing after the other. Every show had this kind of dancing, and now eventually that became this thing called dance contests. See, now you go into competition, and people are winning contests, doing who could be the best in this and all like that, and that's sort of how it evolved into places where we went to the next level. And out of it began competing against each other in this type of thing. And the main force of the dance was this group called Shorty Snowden, who was the man that was like creator of the ballroom. People used to come and watch him dance. And he had
still in the 20s, right?
Yeah, we were in, well, late 20s. Well, you figure Lindbergh took the flight in 1927. Now they're asking about this dance that they're doing in the ballroom. And Shorty Snowden, because of the flight and the newspapers, Lindy's Hop, he named the dance he was doing the Lindy Hop. And that's how the dance became known as the Lindy Hop.
Versteht ihr das alle oder soll ich zwischendurch was zusammenfassen und übersetzen? Ist okay, ne? Gut, super. I don't have to translate. That's great. Yes, yes.
Well, that's how the dance got a name. Because before that it was a two-step, breakaway, all that. But now we've established a style of dance, which became the place where they did this dance was at the Savoy Ballroom. And the Savoy Ballroom began known for the Lindy Hop being danced there. People came there to see it, people came there to dance it, and the bands played the Fletcher Henderson style of music. And that became the factor and the magnet of what became the great dance that spread around the world. Yeah. Then we had the major contest in 1935. It was called the Harvest Moon Ball. And it entailed the 5 boroughs, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Bronx. Those are the 5. And all of these boroughs had a ballroom. Now 5 ballrooms are pitted against each other for the greatest dance contest.
The best against the best?
The best against the best. That became the Harvest Moon Ball. And the highlight of that would be the Lindy Hop. So you had the waltz, the rumba, the tango, the rumba, they had the waltz, the foxtrot, the tango, the the waltz, foxtrot, tango, rumba, Lindy Hop. These were the 5 categories of dance that would be competing for the world's greatest dance in Harvest Moon Ball.
But the Lindy Hop, I guess, was the main attraction.
Yes.
And you guys, of course, you won, and so you were the biggest attraction of this big event at the Madison Square Garden.
Ironic is all the dancers was from all the other ballrooms was white. So you had all white dancers, and the one category was the Lindy Hop that came in. And because the black dancers could not go to the other ballrooms. So you had no black dancers in the other ballrooms. Consequently, when you did the march around the ballroom, I mean, then they stepped up and, shine on, shine on, da, da, da. And they're marching around in the gowns and everything. And hell, the end of it come the black Lindy Hoppers. And the place just went wild. You know? So the difficulty of what we came out of became the very thing that made us what we were. You see, that's the irony of life. That what we were denied so much, but it was that denial that made us the best they were. So if they wanted to see it, they had to come to us. So they're having a Harvest Moon Ball. England is calling, they want to see this dance. Now, no computers, no cell phones, so you have to physically take the dance from here and put it over here. So whoever wins, doesn't matter, will come to England and show the dance. Now, it so happened that Leon James won the contest. Frankie Manning came in second, which shows you what the judges know. And I and my partner came in third. Now, we were the three winners of this contest to go to England. So they wanted Leon and Frankie to go. Well, now Frankie has a job. In those days, having a job was more important to do. He was just dancing as a hobby. So he said, I can't leave my job and go to some place in England. And he wouldn't go, so Whitey asked me to go. I said, yes.
I'm going to meet the Queen? Great. One day I will be the Queen.
And that's how I helped take the Lindy Hop to Europe in 1935.
Can you tell us, because I love it so much to hear again maybe the story when you were 12 years old and you came to the Savoy for the first time at Twistmouth George.
Yeah, it was.
I love it.
It was Easter Sunday, and like all kids, you know, you leave church, and I wanted to come uptown to the ballroom to see, because in Harlem, Easter Sunday, you got a fashion parade, and they came to the Savoy, and I'd be standing out there watching the people go in the ballroom, because God, you never see anything like this. And then the music started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember, wide open windows like this, no air conditioning. So when the band hits up, music is out the street. And who's out the street? Me, with a lot of other kids, and we started dancing in the street to this music. And I heard somebody call me and say, hey kid, come over here. You know, it was this famous, very famous dancer named. It's like looking at Fred Astaire. I mean, 6 feet tall, and he was all dressed all in white, hat, suit, long chain. I mean, he was tall and lanky, and wanted me to come up to the ballroom to dance with him. Me dancing with Twistmouth, heck yeah! And boy, we danced that. It was just the greatest, and everybody was applauding, and he took me around on his shoulders and sent me right back out in the street. You know?
You were too young to spend the night there, obviously, 12 years old.
Oh yeah, but I could dance.
But you managed to get into this famous ballroom that you were always watched from your bedroom window.
Oh yeah.
And fantasized about.
Well, it was a foregone conclusion, no question about it. That was my future, there was no question. I mean, I only saw the Savoy Ballroom, most beautiful place in the world. When you're a kid, your imagination is crazy, you know. And all of a sudden, the Lindy Hop has become the major dance in America. Every place they're doing this Lindy Hop. And so the Apollo Theater have a weekly show. Thursday night, there's no business. So somebody came up with the idea, well, let's have a Lindy Hop contest on the Thursday night, so to boost business. So in the meantime, Whitey is preparing the Lindy Hoppers to go into the contest. And they're going to idea of whoever wins the first prize money, they would split it with this one. That was the idea. It's not that much money, but you're trying to make nickels and dimes. And so in the meantime, I'm a kid dancing in a place called the Renaissance. And we do the Lindy Hop at the Renaissance. So a friend of mine said, listen, they're doing a contest at the Apollo. Why don't you two, be my partner, Sonny Ashby, why don't y'all sign up to go into the contest? Now we're outsiders. We're kids just saying, all right, we signed up to go into a contest. But we didn't know we were going to be going up against the major dancers out of the Savoy Ballroom.
Lovely, lovely.
Well, we're kids. And we won the contest because here was these kids on the floor against these major big dancers. So Sonny and I won first prize, and we ran out of there, and we were splitting the money in the street. It was $25. You get 12, I get 12, and we took the $5, which gave us 10, 10, 20, and we gave the $5 to Billy, who had recommended that we be in the contest.
Oh, that's nice.
We had a lot of money. And we won, and the next day, 8 o'clock in the morning, it's a knock on my door. And I go to the door, and there's this man standing there with 2 other men in back of him. I mean, that like gangsters.
Strong guys, huh?
What the hell is this? You know? Anyway, he said he was Whitey, and he saw me dance last night, and he wanted to be sure that I danced with his group, and he didn't want us to dance against it. And he invited me to come to the support ballroom.
That's a great invitation. Lucky enough that you wanted to go there anyway.
Right, that was how my life started with Whitey. And from then on, I was with Whitey. And I was like a sponge. Whatever they told me to do, I could do. Because I'm a young dancer. So they're building a new dance. So me and then somehow Frankie also was included. We became the youngsters who developed the dance that was able to go into the theaters. And that was how we started the professional career as dancers.
And Herbert White was a guy who noticed your potential, who observed you, and who got ideas to get to gigs and.
He got us the jobs. He got us there to the jobs. We were a group that was considered. We was always on time. We was always well disciplined. We was always well dressed. He guided us. I mean, he had an ulterior motives, but he was the one that created the person I became that I am today.
The professional
dancer, which is another ball game completely. I mean, you have to be committed to be a professional dancer. And because of the knowledge I got from him, I was able to extend a Lindy Hop career into a dancing career that lasted over 70 years. But it was that training that I got that allowed me to go from being just a dancer to creating dancer, how to put it together, what to do with it. So out of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, I got Norma Miller Dancers, which was a group of young dancers that danced jazz. They weren't Lindy Hoppers, they were the Norma Miller jazz dancers. And out of that came Norma Miller and the Jazzmen, which we played Vegas. I had an awesome group.
It was all after the 40s.
This went from the 40s to the 50s to the 60s to the 70s. And you have to keep recreating if you're going to be in the dance world, because it's another world completely. And it changes so fast that now I write about dancing. I'm a writer of dance, and I explain to you what happened and how it goes and who is doing it. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm writing this whole story because out of all of that, I've learned piece by piece how to write, how to talk, how to dance, how to, I always wanted to go to the Grammys. I have never been to the Grammys. Well, how could you? I've been nominated for an Emmy, and I went to the Emmy thing. I didn't win, but at least I got nominated. well, why haven't I been to the Grammys? So well, Norma, to go to the Grammys, you got to write a song. So I began writing songs, and that's how that came about. See, necessity is the mother of invention. I've always been a dancer. I never ever had any other kind of a job. So I've never known how to do nothing else but how to create, produce, and direct for dancing. And out of it now, I put it down all. Did you read my blog today?
Yes, I did. You showed it to me.
And you read it?
Because Norma sits there with her computer and can do all this Textverarbeitung stuff that I don't know, and I was really impressed. I felt, as always, with her very old-fashioned and not up-to-date at all.
So that's was the history of what I've done, and that I owe a lot of that to the training I think I got because of him. He wasn't the nicest man in the world. He was a manipulator, a maneuver. But you have to do that when you got kids. And we were kids and we were growing up. And like all parents, kids, they don't want kids to grow up, but they do. And they question your ability. And that's when, so the war gave us the answer. When the war stepped in, they took all the men. And that was the answer. What are you going to do now? And that was what led to the Norma Miller dances. So I created my own dance group,
So I wondered if we could step a little bit back in time, and maybe you can describe us a special night at the Savoy, maybe all these, or if there was a band battle going on, because at the Savoy there were these two bandstands, and maybe you can talk about that a little, because I think we would love to. We're always fantasizing about it, and what was so unique about the Savoy in the first place?
The uniqueness was, it was a ballroom catered for dancing. That was the purpose of it. And the music, they brought the music there so that those people who came there could dance. And that's what they did. And the greatest night of all, see now swing is just taken off. It's the biggest thing in the country. Now the issue is, who's going to be king of swing? Now we've got the great John Hammond bringing Benny Goodman up to Harlem. There's a whole white band coming up to Harlem, and there's Chick Webb in Harlem, who is the greatest band in Harlem. Now, Benny Goodman is going to take on Chick Webb, and there's a fight between people. And this band, you thought we was voting for president. I mean, this was a big night. And nothing bigger in the world. Chick Webb against Benny Goodman. Now, a lot of prejudices come in. I mean, they had their nerve coming up to Harlem. They didn't take this and put this contest downtown at Carnegie Hall. They put it in the Savoy Ballroom in 1938, and it became the biggest night ever in the history of band competing against each other. And it was really a fantastic, it was just something you've never seen, and you couldn't believe it. And remember, they packed it without a computer. I mean, how people got to know what was going on in those days? Because you consider, well, how did people get to know? Word of mouth. It was word of mouth. And Harlem was a place that had a lot of word of mouth. And you had, that night, you had as many people outside as you had inside the ballroom. And I think the charge to come in was $1.
That's not $1, because 5,000 people could fit in there. Then it comes together. It was a lot of money for the old days. And there was another night that I like, when you told me about it last time. It was the night when Count Basie came to Harlem. Maybe you like, because Webb and Basie are I think all our favorite bands too.
Right. Basie was coming to Harlem, and one of our dancers was talking about what was going to be happening when Basie hits the ballroom. And
band from Kansas City.
And he's going to take on the great Chick Webb. And so a lot of the kids were saying that Basie's going to run Chick Webb out, and it was just talk. And it so happened Chick Webb's valet, band boy, whatever you want to call him, was standing there listening to what the Lindy Hoppers was saying about Chick Webb. Now, Chick Webb was not an ordinary man to say something like that laying down. And he got mad. He got very mad. He called us all kinds of names. You so-and-so, and he cussed us, and because he was a little bit of guy, and I mean, he'd take on a giant. And Whitey heard it. So that night I came in, as we're coming upstairs, we were told, when Chick Webb played, you don't dance.
Wow, that is tough.
Oh, in the ballroom, that's a big decision. So the night started, and Chick Webb hit the bandstand. That whole side of the ballroom was empty. We all sat there.
There were big fights in those days.
Then Count Basie hit the bandstand. The whole floor filled up. Now really, now they notice something is going on.
Yeah.
And I saw in the corner, there goes Whitey, Charlie Buchanan, Chick Webb. They're back there in the consultation. But see, Whitey was showing his muscle.
Yeah.
You dare not talk about his Lindy Hoppers and expect. And anyway, it was all settled.
But you made up pretty soon, I guess.
Oh yeah, because I ended up doing quite a lot of jobs with Chick Webb. His very last job, Paramount Theater in New York City, and at the time Ella Fitzgerald is with the band now, and it was Chick Webb's orchestra, Chuck and Chuck, I don't know, Whitey and the vocalist Ella Fitzgerald down here at the bottom. That was how we went into the Paramount. Now, in the meantime,
so you had more top billing than Ella at that time,
right? She was a great vocalist, but she had never been with any other band at the time except
was her start
with Chick Webb. This was the great Ella. And now we're playing the first show. We're at the Paramount Theater. And we notice the second show, another drummer comes on stage, Kaiser Marshall. And that's the first time we had any knowledge that Chick was not well. And that was when we found out they took to Johns Hopkins Hospital because he had tuberculosis of the spine. And he used to sit on a whoopee cushion to push those drums. But we didn't know that's why he was always so, feisty, What the hell is wrong
der
with
Chick
him?
Webb, der Drummer, der war sehr, sehr schwer krank, also Tuberkulose des Rückenmarks. Ich weiß nicht, wie das medizinisch auf Deutsch heißt, aber es ist tödlich halt. Ja.
So he never came back. And that was the first time we knew about it. And of course, in the meantime, they had been, the fight was, who was the king of swing? Well, that was Benny Goodman now became king of swing. And there it is. White people won again.
It took several decades to put it into perspective,
Exactly.
to the right one.
Exactly. So that's what happened. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, plenty. I think we can also, if one of you guys want to have a question or so,
Please ask a question.
Great, but we can also, in the end, make a big
Right. Okay.
Q&A and stuff. Yeah.
Anybody want to ask in English, please? Okay. Don't want to ask now? Nothing? Nothing? From nobody?
I think
Later, okay, all right. Okay.
I think what lots of people would like to know is how you were, apart from dancing at the Savoy, how you got into inventing new steps and all that, and did you meet during the day, or how was the procedure? How was your everyday life look like?
Well, every day, you're always on the lookout trying to find what kind of job you got to get, what kind of job you can get. And when after the war, things changed so much. When I formed my dances, I followed the same pattern we had in Lindy Hop. So the first major job my Norma Miller dancers had was at the Roxy Theater in New York. So that was with Gay Foster, the great Gay Foster. So my dancer was able to do more than Lindy Hop. They were just very, very good dancers. And then out of that came our being part of the Olsen and Johnson family.
They're from Hazapoppen.
Yeah, we became part of that family. And because of our capabilities of fitting in with various kinds of dancing, they were put together a big show with Olsen and Johnson, the Skating Vanities, because see, we had a big show where it became the Ice Capades, but it started out with skaters on the big arenas. And we had the skaters, we had Harold Steinman, you see the dancing waters, you know, these big waters that come up at the Bellagio in Vegas. They come from the skating show we did. Out of that came that show. And we were with this big show, we played every big arena in America. And I had a big, large dance group there. And out of that came that. You look for jobs that had big potential. Because I had 10 dancers with me and I had to have a place. They were very good for opening shows. And that's how we got with Count Basie. And we played every major theater in New York. It was a very, very popular group. Yeah.
So now that you mentioned Olsen and Johnson, maybe we could see Hazapoppen.
Okay.
This is the film on the right. Okay. The right.
Everything is all now. This thing might turn into
And
something.
Norma is right.
I'm
She's the one who
mistaken
dances
for
in
something
front.
now.
Okay.
I was 19 years old.
19 years old.
I was at my best speed. I've done a lot of slowing down since then.
But because you were so fast, you're not pretty slow now.
Yeah. That was the routine, and that was the last of it, because then the war just changed everything. Everything.
And so after the film, you went to Rio for a couple of weeks, but it turned out to be a couple of months.
The day we got there, we opened on the 5th, and you know what happened on the 7th. We were walking down the street, and we heard Pearl Harbor had happened, and all hell broke loose. And we were in a foreign country.
So the harbor was blocked with warships and everything.
Well, we had boat tickets. We had round trip tickets by boat, which means
they were useless.
No, you can't go out. You couldn't go by boat. So you had to find a way. But we had enough work. We worked all the way, but saved up the money to go to fly out of Rio de Janeiro. But flying out, that was the first time all of us had ever been on a plane. Yeah, that was it, yeah.
The plane is now your second home.
That was how we got back to America, yeah.
And so, and you ended up coming back to Florida after
Rio?
Rio?
We landed in Florida.
Yeah.
And
the film with Duke Ellington was a big hit on the jukeboxes at that
well,
time.
At
So everybody knew you, right? When you came back to the States.
We made that the day after we finished Elsa Poppin'. We did that the next day, and then we left California and went straight to Rio de Janeiro.
So in Florida, people knew you.
Well, they didn't know us then.
Oh, okay.
They didn't know us then. That was when we came back. We just nobody.
Back from Rio. That's
yeah, we were sort of stranded, looking for jobs, trying to get enough money to leave Miami and go home. Because now you got to figure out what you're going to do now. It's all everything is different, and that was how it sort of things. You look around and see what your possibilities are.
So Florida was very bad with the segregation.
Oh God, horrible, horrible. I mean, that was the first time I'm in the middle of it. Yeah. I'm seeing it now. You know, you hear about it, but that's a lot different when you go in some place that you can't.
I'll shortly explain. Also Segregation, das ist die sogenannte Rassentrennung, die es natürlich damals in Anführungsstrichen natürlich in den USA gab. Und in Harlem war eben schwarzer Stadtteil und das Savoy war eben ein Ballroom, wo Schwarze und Weiße gemeinsam tanzen konnten, die weltweite Ausnahme. Und in Florida war man eben dann mittendrin, dass eben die Weißen gingen dahin und die Schwarzen dahin und ja, extremely.
You were confined. I mean, you weren't allowed to do a lot of things. I mean, this is in the 40s, this is 1942. I mean, this is, you can't go here, you can't go, I mean, what?
You can get a hotel room,
oh, no,
can't get something to eat, not a restroom and stuff.
You stayed on a place called 2nd Avenue. That's where you were. That was part of where black people lived in that area, and that's where you lived, and you ate, but at a restaurant. It was just horrible. But now when, a few years later, fast forward, 1956, we were doing the Cotton Club show. And the Cotton Club show is coming to Miami. And that was how this next, but a lot of things is happening in 56. Jackie Robinson is coming up against breaking the color line in baseball. Now, in baseball, Miami is the farm team for the Dodgers. Now, Jackie Robinson is the only black on the team. Now the baseball team is coming to Miami Beach, but Jackie Robinson can't come to Miami Beach. Jackie Robinson's got to come to the Hotel Mary Elizabeth on 2nd Avenue where we're staying. So here is Jackie Robinson in the same hotel. I'm in the same hotel. Next, Joe Louis is retiring, undefeated champion of the world, the biggest thing in the world.
Der größte Boxer aller Zeiten, Joe Louis.
Where's he retiring to? Miami. So he comes to Miami. Now here in the Mary Elizabeth Hotel, Jackie Robinson, Joe Louis, here's Roy Campanella, Larry Doby, because they can't, see the farm team of baseball is Florida. But now the black entertainers can't go to the beach. And that's the reason Branch Rickey built the next year, he built Dodger Town so that all the baseball players could be the same place. Because this was the first time where black players are on 2nd Avenue and all the white players is over there on Miami Beach. And it sort of was a bit of a problem, would you say? But there I am, Thurgood Marshall comes down, the man who's going to be the Supreme Court Justice, who fought segregation in the schools. He's there doing some kind of political something, because everything in those days is political. But I'm in the midst of the finest men in the world. And you're hearing conversations, how, you know, what they're going to do about this. And you're not there, but you're a part of it. And also there comes, who else? The great Louis Armstrong. he comes to, because he's playing one of the big hotels, but he too has got to stay over. So there I am, and I see Louis all the time. Saw him with Louis Armstrong, Jackie Robinson. Me and Joe Louis are great friends. I mean, because I thought he was the most wonderful man I've ever met. I don't know nobody that I rated with Joe Louis. He was a champion. He taught me the meaning of the word. And he had to be a champion because he fought against, you couldn't believe the odds for him to become champion of the world. What he had to do.
Boxing was like the least problem in a way.
There was a vow that never, ever there would be a black heavyweight champion. Ever. Now, Max Schmeling comes to New York. There you have Max. Oh, there's a book called The Fight. Read it. It's the greatest book. It shows you Max Schmeling was a German, but he was German. He was not part of the things that was happening in Germany. He was a fighter that represented the German people. Joe Louis was a man that represented the American people. And who was the great promoter? Mike Jacobs, a Jew. Now put that together. Now you're coming up, listen, this was a very precarious time. It was just, you can't believe it was so wonderful because Max Schmeling was the one that paid for Joe Louis' funeral. You see, he became persona, he became the man to represent, Coca-Cola was coming here. And he represented Coca-Cola. Because when he lost the fight to Joe Louis, he became a persona non grata in Germany.
Oh, right.
And you know that. But what happened? Coca-Cola came. He represented Coca-Cola. With that, he got...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how he got rich. Well, he couldn't fight here. I mean, listen, you'd be surprised how people take and represent the wrong thing. He was a peasant that was a fighter. And the both of them respected each other. I mean, Joe Louis was the world's greatest. And Max Schmeling beat him the first time. And out of that, he went up against Braddock. That was what Mike Jacobs put together. Now, if Max Schmeling fought Braddock, he would have won the championship and brought it back to Germany. And you know, we would have never seen it again. I did. So Max Schmeling went to Braddock and said they wanted, if he fought Joe Louis, they could be guaranteed the championship would remain in America. Now the heavyweight championship is up for grabs. That's the biggest thing in sports, the heavyweight championship. So Max Schmeling made a deal with Braddock because he had to either fight Schmeling or he had to fight Joe Louis. So Mike Jacobs sweetened the pot. He said, well, if you fight Joe Louis and Joe Louis win, he would have 10 years of his earnings for the next 10 years. Leave it to the Jew to make the right deal. That was Mike Jacobs. And you remember, this is a very precarious time between Jews, blacks, and Germans.
In 1934, 1935, when you went on your first Europe tour and introduced Lindy Hop to London and to Zurich and to Paris, originally you were supposed to play at the Admiralspalast in Berlin. And
they wouldn't let, I couldn't. We were leaving Paris, so always when you leave Paris, you go to Germany, and that's the usual routine for acts. Yeah. So we got a Jewish manager and 4 black dancers.
Sounds like a great combination.
So we went to Zurich, Switzerland. See? So we bypassed. But many years later, I came back to...
Last year, finally, she was back.
I got back to Germany. Thank you, Dankeschön. In life, there's always hope. It's what's so wonderful. I mean, that I live to see the changes. Well, look, I lived to see a black president. I mean, now isn't that a winner? So you see, life continuously evolved. And I was there for the inaugural, for the wonderful, there you got it, brother. I mean, you know what that meant in our country. So times, like Dylan said, times are changing. And life is wonderful. And I thank God that I was able to see those changes. Yeah. And here I am in Germany again. Thank you again.
I think I can speak for everybody. Incredible to have you here.
Yeah.
And hopefully you want to stop now, or can we still ask some questions?
Whatever you guys want to do.
Yes. Whoa.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can see another film.
What is that?
It's the left one. It's A Day at the Races with
okay.
the Marx Brothers,
Okay.
1937.
1937, right? Okay. He was the last of the black-faced amigos.
Happened after you went on tour with Ethel Waters, the great singer?
We were at the Paramount Theater in Los Angeles, and in the meantime, they were making this. They had made this movie with the Marx Brothers, and they had completed the movie. And then they saw our act at the theater. They decided to add our act to the movie because it was the first time the West Coast had ever seen the Lindy Hop. You know, I mean, there was no,
very important.
You never had anything on it before. So now they saw the Lindy Hop, and they put the Lindy Hop in the movie. And that's how that came about. And that was the first time the West Coast had seen the Lindy Hop.
So that was a clever move to put you in that film.
And that became Dead the Races.
And the best scene.
Because they had a big colored scene anyway. But when they saw us, they knew that we would be perfect. And they brought that whole cast back. And it was 2 days of shooting, and that's what the results.
At that time, it was not very common that black actors were integrated in white Hollywood films. Especially, they are the maid, maybe, or the porter, or whatever, but not like main characters.
Exactly. And then you had to be so that it would hit certain places in the South, the scene could be cut out. And that was always the real reason of making a scene in such a way that it would be taken out of the movie and wouldn't
it didn't affect the main action of the film, so that they can cut it out. So
if they want to, yeah.
That the white folks in the South don't have the crisis of their lives because they see somebody could dance much better than they can.
And there you are. It's a very simple thing, but it was held to poppin'. I mean, this scene was never taken out.
Day at the Races was kept in.
Yeah, it's kept in. Yeah. Well, because it was the Marx Brothers, and they were loony anyway.
Okay. And so they were so crazy that you guys were allowed to stay in the movie.
We were allowed to stay in the movie and held to poppin' also. They didn't. That it was too integral a part, and it didn't interfere with the census of white people thinking black people and white people are mixing. For some reason or other, it was insane. But the whole idea of segregation was insane. Yeah.
And the Savoy Ballroom was owned by a Jewish white guy named Mogale, and he had a partner in the black manager named Charles Buchanan, and they founded the only place in the world, probably at that time, where white people and black people were dancing together, because usually, tell us how it was usually at that time.
And you know, it's a funny thing. We lived it, but we never gave it a thought. Always white and black danced together in the Savoy Ballroom. But see, we never got outside the ballroom, so we never knew the turmoil that was going on out there. But in the ballroom, that was the first place in the world, that was completely integrated. Completely. From the day the doors opened. Nobody ever gave it a thought that there would be any other way. But do you know that's the only place that was completely desegregated in the world was the Savoy Ballroom? 1926. 1926. We never thought about
where it opened and started that way,
Harlem,
and it stayed that way.
Well, in Harlem, white people was in Harlem every night anyway. So I never thought that. I thought it was black people in the daytime, but white people owned it at night. And
they went slumming to the Cotton Club and watched these plantation shows where black entertainers were on stage but not allowed in the audience.
Exactly. But nobody gave that a thought. They decided to change the habits of the entertainment in Harlem. And they knew the only way they could do that was to stop white people coming to Harlem. And that's how that started. So the first thing they did was remove the Cotton Club out of Harlem and put it downtown. And that began a process. And everything began to be changing from entertainment in Harlem to entertaining the people, putting the black entertainers in the clubs in downtown Harlem, because white people like to watch black people cavort. And it's simple as that.
We feel guilty now.
And that was how that was done, yeah. And I lived to see all of this. And it began to, I began putting it together. I mean, when you begin to realize how we are manipulated into doing things that's not socially correct. And I've seen a great change in people. People make changes. They're the ones that make, if there's going to be a change in the world, you have to make the change, and that's what has happened. You see.
And when you you danced all your life, then you were a comedian, a stand-up comedian, then you wrote books about, let me show you, about, like you were in comedy.
Yeah, that was the first book.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah.
I can only recommend it. I just started it.
Yeah.
I just got it, but it's excellent. I almost didn't sleep last night because I wanted to read as much as possible. Norma wrote it.
The beginning of comedy, of black comedy in America, but it was dominated for the first 40 years by the minstrel. Minstrel was the entertainment. Did you have minstrel shows here in Germany?
No, not at all. It's uniquely American art form, but they went on tour sometimes.
But you didn't have it in Germany?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You didn't see minstrel shows?
Never. Never.
Well, the amazing thing, minstrel shows was white people putting on blackface. Al Jolson, Eddie Cantor, all the great stars were once in blackface. Put on blackface, imitating what black people did. And now black people began putting on blackface to imitate white people that was imitating them. And that's the story of the Encyclopedia of Black Humor. That's how it started. To see that, to see how, because remember at one time if a person lived certain places, they couldn't travel ordinarily. They couldn't just go from place to place without a pass. So what they did was they put on the blackface and joined carnivals. And that got them out of certain areas. And that became how they, most entertainers, because you didn't know whether he was white or black. So a black person will put on makeup and will fit into whatever they were doing, and that's how, that established his way of going from one place to the other. And that's how it started, how black people was able to move from one place to the other without a pass, without the permission of the master. You know, the thing called the master. Okay, but that's how it started. We got him in the end. We got him in the end. But it was amazing. That's the story of the history of black entertainers going into comedy. And I did the research on that.
And you wrote this lovely book.
That was on the history of the Savoy Ballroom.
It's very important. Everybody should read it. It's like the main source for everything that ever interested us.
Yeah. Well, it's how the dance started at the ballroom. And this is all about the ballroom. This is all about dancing. And that's why I wrote that book. See, I got to the place when you get my age, that's all you can do is sit around and write and remember. And I try to remember all the good things, and that's what I try to put into a book. That's Swingin' at the Savoy, because that's what we did. We swung, boy did we swing. And the greatest bands in the world, the best in the world, we saw every night. And that was my whole lifetime until the war, and that changed everything.
But you found your way to do great stuff afterwards too.
I said necessity is the mother of invention. I had to have a job. I never could do nothing. I never got paid for doing anything but dancing, so I had to make dancing my future. But how do you dance after your body gets worn out and people won't hire you? So I had to come up.
Swing is not king anymore.
Exactly. So I had to come up with other creations. And then you begin to create it. Especially, the years pass. I wind up being an old spinster. And my mother used to, my mother used to say, why don't you get married? I didn't get married. And I told my mother, well, I'm going to be a spinster. And she said, no, she said, are you going to wind up an old maid? And I said, no, I'm going to be a spinster. And she said, what the hell is the difference? And I said, well, you see, to tell the world you're an old maid is like telling the world you have grown old on the vine and you ain't been plucked.
Ah, ja, also das eine ist alte Jungfrau und das andere ist eben, ja, ja, und den Verdacht möchte sie natürlich nicht geraten.
And dearie, I have been plucked.
So.
But
it's a very wise decision, so then you could always do whatever you wanted to do. And
I had no choice in the matter, you know. Traveling, you know, something about men. Men, believe me, absence do not make the heart grow fonder.
oh, okay.
It grows fonder for somebody else. And you're out there. So I've always been associated with the finest men in the world, the finest. And the men I met just didn't come up, to what I thought a great man should be. And so,
makes perfect sense to me.
but when you're in the presence of some of the men that I knew, I could just, nobody ever compared to Joe Louis. I mean, he was a man that was a giant, but he was a lamb. He was the kindest person. He was a sweetheart. And this man who could, I mean, he had a fist that would knock a man out. He was just a very sweet man because he wasn't able to talk for 2 years. He wasn't allowed to. Jackie Robinson also. Remember, Jackie Robinson was put into baseball with understanding. You don't talk. You don't answer. You don't say nothing. I mean, and Jackie Robinson went through some of the most demeaning. I mean, you couldn't believe, and he couldn't say nothing. That was the deal. For him to get on that field. And it was more important for him to be on the field to open the door for his race than to talk about, you can't say that to me. He wasn't allowed to. Now you can imagine what it takes for a man for 2 years to sit there and not say nothing and take every insult that you can give a person. That's what Jackie Robinson had to go through. And I mean, when I look at him, honey, listen, I would have blown my, I couldn't do it. I know I couldn't do it. But he was picked because the line had to be broken. It was designed. And Joe Louis, Jack Johnson had left a taste in the world of sports that never again would a black man be allowed to even compete for the championship. And here came a man named Joe Louis. Well, he was quiet anyway, so he could sit quietly and let the others do the talking for him. And people used to think that he was dumb. He was smart. And that's how he became champion. Because you have to break a line. You know what a black man was up against to be able to get through that line. The point was to get through. And because of him, you had great black athletes come in. Well, at one time, you had no black men in football. I mean, baseball. All of that was denied the great talent of black people. Well, how did that happen? That had to change. Well, we had Martin Luther King. That had to change. And men like this, they're gods. And because of them, I can sit here with you. I can sit here and talk to you. That was what they did. And I knew what they did. And I admired them for it. I loved them for it. And I devote my life to being a person that could be proud and not to do anything that would disgrace what they did. And that was important because it brought a whole race of people up. Black people needed pride. They needed that pride to be able to step up to the line.
And that's what you see when one sees you guys dancing. Yeah. When you listen to the music, that's what's exactly the thing. It's like it's not over yet, but we are here, and the future will be different. This is the sound of the music, and that's the vision when you guys
people
dance.
Now recognize each other, and they respect each other. And I hope that I was a part of that community that allowed people to see each other, walk amongst each other, and love each other the way it should be. And I lived to see that. That was the greatest gift that God could have given me. You know?
How was it for you when you saw people dancing again, Lindy Hop, being interested in the roots, knowing that you were part of the history?
That started in the 80s when we got Frankie Manning, finally got him out of the post office. He was in the post, couldn't get a job. 37 years he was in the post office. And I said, listen, I'm writing a book about this and you got to come back. And he said, come back to what? There was no jobs. But he came back to teaching. and he became the greatest teacher. And when I was here in June, and I looked on the dance floor, they were dancing like Frankie Manning. That was the greatest tribute. I said, the world danced like Frankie. And because of that, I'm here to sit and talk to you about a person who, he and I were together over 70 years. Frankie and I, we were kids together, we were raised together. And he was the dearest friend I've ever had. And now I can go back. After his death, I couldn't write. I just, you know, it's like a part of you is gone. And now I can sit and write, and I can do this because I'm trying to carry on the legacy which he left, yeah. And that's why I'm here. Yeah.
It's so important also for the future generations to come.
Exactly.
Because we are lucky enough to have you in our midst.
Well, I hope I have a few more years left.
Oh,
yeah.
What are your future plans?
To live to be 100.
Yeah, that's awesome. Swing party?
Oh yeah, Frankie Manning's 100th birthday, 2014. We want to have the world's greatest champion dancers come to America, Madison Square Garden, and to repeat the Global Harvest Moon Ball. The champions around the world will be competing in New York in honor of Frankie Manning's 100th birthday. That's what we're planning here. The Round the World Championship. And that's going to be the greatest championship of the world because it would be countries now instead of just Manhattan, the boroughs. We want China, we want Korea, Brazil, Germany, New York. I mean, it's going to be huge. It's going to be big. Can you imagine? And we're hoping to have a $50,000 prize. We're hoping. Well, we might wind up by $10,000, but we want to have a $50,000 winner take all. Can you imagine them people dancing for $50,000? You're going to see dancing like you're going to be a slaughter. It's dangerous. It's going to be the greatest, but we want to at Madison Square Garden in New York. Yeah. We're hoping anyway. That's the plan.
So I think now everybody can ask questions.
Yeah, go ahead. No. You mean no questions yet?
I think everybody is just so overwhelmed and has too many questions.
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned life evolves a few times when you talk this night. Did you recognize any changes or evolving of the Lindy Hop, of the dance? I mean, except a few lovely exceptions. They are all new people dancing it compared to the old times.
Oh yeah, all new
change,
people.
or is there any?
No, they do. You see, what's marvelous? They're dancing to the same music. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the music is better because of the technology than when it was recorded. So now you've got young people recognizing what we recognized, and they're loving and enjoying that what we did. You understand? You're dancing to the same music. So the dance is going to be the same. Only thing, it's better. Why? Because they're younger. I was in Korea a couple of months ago, and the dancers there are marvelous. Korea. But they're all young. And I'm working with my great-grandchildren. And boy, can they swing. And I left Brazil. Brazil used to be the home of the samba. Everywhere you went, doom, da doom, 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 da doom. Now they're swinging. What's going on? And I was in Germany, in Leipzig, and I looked out on the dance floor. Everybody danced like Frankie Manning. So I don't miss Frankie. I said, there he's out there, and they're dancing like Frankie Manning. I said, well, Frankie was here too. I was amazed. It was Germany of all places. They danced, you dance like Frankie. Wow. I see, that's the only dance you knew. And what you see, he was the one you learned from. And what has happened, you dance like him. Now I know there's hope in life. Beautiful. You, and I enjoyed watching you because you're bringing back something in my life that's gone. And I see it everywhere. I see Frankie everywhere I go. He has left a legacy that was, remember, he didn't dance for 37 years. God. And came back because he said he wanted to put the Lindy Hop back up where it belonged. And he did. Now his son travels with me. The wonderful Chaz, that he and I traveled, and I said, do you think Frankie and Billy Rick is looking down at us as we're doing what we're doing now? But we're doing it for the love of Frankie, because Frankie did something that was very special. He was as good as Joe Louis was to boxing, as good as Jackie Robinson was to baseball. And these people left a legacy for black people to follow, to come up to. And that to me is what my pride is. I can see that the Lindy Hop has taken its place amongst a whole new generation. It's not just a dance, it's a legacy. It's what Louis Armstrong created. Louis Armstrong gave the world, he made the world recognize America because of a sound. Now here was a man with nothing, no referrals, no teachers, nothing. And he could take a trumpet and make the world listen. Ah, that man was Louis Armstrong. And I knew him very well. And every year I worked with the Louis Armstrong young jazz musicians who come to New Orleans every year to study Louis Armstrong's music. Now we've got young musicians. We got a couple of kids there. You're going to hear from them. We got a kid named John Michael, a white kid. And I told the audience, I said, Louis Armstrong have returned. He's coming around the corner, but this time he's white. He's 16 years old. And you could hear this kid. I mean, you don't know where you find talent. You don't know where. Every year I'm in New Orleans. When I leave this year, I go to New Orleans. I think that the young musicians are going to Dubai. The Arab of what's going is bringing the young musicians there. But we've got kids who come and play jazz, because that's what America gave the world. Jazz. That we owe to the great Louis Armstrong. He's my personal friend. Yeah. Anything else? I know you all know something. Go ahead. Thank you.
In the early days, there was a question, just bring back to a question that Swanee posed before. In the early days, how did you develop steps and moves? Like, did you do it on the dance floor, or did you hang out during the day and?
Did you develop steps and moves on the dance floor, or before, or later, or?
Well, when we were coming up, it was 24/7, all day long. We're in the rehearsal hall all day, every day, and every night dancing to the bands. But you see, we were always trained, always. After school, we'd be in there rehearsing. And it's through that's how you develop what you do, because you just get good at what you do. And we were just the best at what we did. And Whitey was there like a trainer, walking around. And you just didn't sit around. You had to get up. This person was over here, this person. This is what we did every day. But it wasn't work. We were doing something that we loved. Well, I noticed the same thing in tennis. They have a tennis club, and the kids are hitting the ball all day. Out of that, you might have another Serena Williams or something, you know what I mean? So, yes, we did this every day, every day. We were good at what we did, you know. We weren't real trained, but we were being trained. But we didn't even know we were being trained, because we did it without the thought of cost. I mean, nobody was getting paid for this. We were doing this because we loved what we did. But out of it became a job. It developed into where we could make a living doing it. That was the reason, yeah.
And it sometimes got tough
Yeah.
when like you had a breakdown at age 17.
Oh, well,
18th birthday.
I was working all the time. I mean, you never stop working. And, you know, you're not eating properly. You're not doing that. At 17, what do you know? So I wind up in a hospital, you know. But I didn't know, you know, exhaustion is a thing. At 17 years old, exhausted. Yeah, because you keep going. You don't know you must stop. And you must take time out. And in those days, there was no time out. Even if we got hurt, we continued dancing. You oversprained an ankle, you got a bad shoulder, you kept dancing. You didn't know not to. We didn't, and a lot of it caused a lot of serious injuries. I have some serious injuries. Exactly, serious. But you learn. You learn how to take care of what you got, what's valuable. And my life as a dancer was valuable, and I tried to take care of it. And I'm trying to live, like I said, to 100. I'm going to try to make it. Okay.
Another question?
This is the quietest audience I have ever. It's okay to talk. Go ahead. I'm hearing something.
Hi.
Hi, dear.
I'm curious about like the involvement. I know now about you, like the top of the iceberg, dancing, like your involvement in Lindy Hop and swing dancing. What about average people? Like how, like percentage of population, who was involved and how high?
I mean, what do you mean percentage?
I don't really need numbers, but just to imagine, like with us, you could say we are not too many involved into swing music. Like when you look at other dances, people doing salsa, doing tango, or whatever.
Oh well, now you're gonna get that. They're gonna be the Latino dance invasion is monstrous. I mean, they come in and they damn near wipe us out. I mean, the first you had the mambo, then you had the cha-cha-cha, then you had the salsa. Salsa is very big in ballrooms. You know what I mean? We hold on to our edge because we have dance events. But outside of these dance events, everything is Latinos. The Latinos have taken over everything. And you go to see Dancing with the Stars, or you go and listen to, do you get Dancing with the Stars over here? Well, do you get any of the dancing shows? Do you have any of the dancing shows over here? Like, do you think you can dance?
Yeah, we have it.
Well, you notice that all the other dances are Latino-based. They were all Latino-based. I know all our dance events, if we don't have the swing dance events, they wouldn't even know we're around. So the Latino dancing is very, very strong, and is based mostly on, everybody does the salsa. Salsa is very popular, and because Latin rhythm is much easier to interpret, but it's Latin rhythm. Swing is American rhythm, and we hold up for the American rhythm, but the Latinos is just as strong. What is your favorite dance?
Well, right now it's Lindy Hop.
Thank you.
Like in those days,
You're one of us.
Thanks. In those days, my question was, you talked about the competitions, and there were several different dances. So I wonder how widespread was Lindy Hop then, or the swing dancing?
Well, in the contest, you had the waltz had its own competition. Then you had the foxtrot. Each one of them had a championship. And the Lindy Hop had its championship. But now the contest depended on all the dances. You had to compete in all 5 dances. And that winner became the all-around world champion. So the Lindy Hop couldn't take that out. The Lindy Hop only had the Lindy Hop. So what happened, the world champion was a white dancer because he could do the waltz, the foxtrot, the tango, the rumba and didn't have to do much with the Lindy Hop because he won the 4 categories. So what happened, the world championship became a dancer who won those so you had that dancer won the all-around championship, and he was crowned every year, but a Lindy Hopper was never included. So the deal was, since we were not able to compete in the waltz and the foxtrot and the tango, they came up with the idea we would win the Lindy Hop first, second, and third prize. That was given to us by divine right. Because you couldn't compete. The first year I saw Leon competing in the waltz, it was ridiculous. And you see, all the champions had to compete in all the dances. That was the idea of the categories. But the Lindy Hop did not take out anything other than the Lindy Hop. They could not compete with Leon on that basis. So it was dealt, we would have this little segment, and you guys would have the other 4. You win out anyway, I don't care. Y'all always win. That's how it sort of is.
I think she also meant amongst the general population.
It's
like
Latino.
When you traveled in the 30s and 40s. Did
Oh.
you read that? Hello? Yeah.
Madame, did you mean when we traveled in the 30s and 40s?
How much Lindy Hop was read? Yeah.
Well, and remember, the 30s and 40s, the craze was the Lindy Hop. So everywhere you went, they wanted to see the Lindy Hop. They've always seen the waltz.
Yeah.
You've always seen the foxtrot. Because you knew Irene and Vernon Castle. You knew all of that. No one, the Lindy Hop now has become the dominant dance that the world wants. I mean, magazines covered it, and then it got to the films, which gave it another step upward. But the Lindy Hop was the craze of the world at the time, because it was called the Maniac Dance. And the bands was playing this kind of music.
But not so many people could do it.
Oh yeah, everybody could do it. Yeah. See, everybody could do it then because that was the dance. Everybody came to the ballroom to dance the Lindy. And they went to Roseland, they danced the Lindy.
Yeah.
Whatever that, Lindy Hop was the craze. It was like everything. So everybody did it, but it was a social dance. It wasn't a professional dance. That's the difference.
And it looked different from city to city.
Exactly. They dance, they swing in Kansas City.
Yeah.
But see, they didn't start dancing until we got to the West Coast.
You had to bring it.
We had to bring it in. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So some people might not have seen you guys or haven't.
Well, nobody did. It was after after we traveled around the world to different places. Because every city we played, we would go out that night in a nightclub and show the dance. And that was how that was done. We had no other way of spreading it around the world. We had to physically, we were traveling with Ethel Waters. We were traveling in all these cities, and every city we played, we went to the nightclub after the show and gave an exhibit of the Lindy. That's how that was done, yeah. And we did that cross country.
You were pretty active. My God, you spread all over.
4 shows a day. Remember, you're doing theaters. 4 shows a day. After 4 shows a day, you go out every night and dance and show the dance you've been doing all 4 shows every day. We did this every day, and that's why I collapsed at the end of it. I was just worn out, you know. And sleeping on benches and stuff. Oh, brother, stuff you do when you're young. But that's what made the dance, you know. Okay.
I think we should allow one more question.
Okay.
Norma, if you would get the possibility to live 1 year again, 1 year of your life again, which one would it be and why?
This one. I have one prayer at night when I go to bed. I ask the good Lord, just give me tomorrow. Okay? Say finito. That's it. Finish. Nobody got nothing more to say. Well, I'd say something. Thank you for
see
inviting
that you
me.
have get some rest.
Yeah, thank you. What was it I'm supposed to say? Guten Abend. BK.